Three American kids conquered the charts from England with a song about a nameless horse. It knocked Neil Young from number 1. They were given Beatles-level prestige, 20 million records sold. Then, the spiritual breakdown no one predicted. One voice vanished into faith. The harmonies shattered forever. They fought over their legacy in bitter silence while touring empty casinos. It was decades later when they found redemption. This is how America rose to the top and quietly collapsed from within. London, it's the late 1960s. Three teenage boys found themselves trapped between worlds. Too American for England, too displaced to call anywhere home. It Lee Dewey Bunnell, Jerry Beckley, and Dan Peake were sons of U.S. Air Force personnel stationed overseas during one of the most turbulent periods in American history. While their peers back in the States were navigating the draft, protests, and cultural revolution, these three were living on military bases in a foreign country, watching America from across an ocean. Dewey Bunnell's childhood was defined by constant motion. He moved 18 times in 16 years, a rootless existence that taught him survival through detachment. As he later reflected, if he made a mistake in one place, he could reinvent himself the next year in Omaha, or wherever his father's orders took them next. This perpetual displacement created a profound yearning for something permanent, something authentically American, that existed only in their imaginations and the records they smuggled from home. Before we continue, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. They met at London Central High School in Hertfordshire, near a community hub for American military families trying to maintain their identity on foreign soil. To combat homesickness and culture shock, they started playing music together. What began as three kids strumming borrowed acoustic guitars in basement rooms evolved into something more deliberate. Their heroes were Crosby, Stills, and Nash, those intricate, close vocal harmonies that captured the folk rock purity of Laurel Canyon. The Beatles, of course, were everywhere in London, but for these three displaced Americans, it was the West Coast sound that resonated deepest. They were singing about a California they'd never really lived in, a mythical American landscape constructed from photographs, road maps, and the desert memories of childhood road trips. By 1970, they'd formalized as America, a name that captured everything they felt disconnected from, yet constantly romanticized. The irony wasn't lost on them. A band called America, formed in England by military brats who'd spent their formative years anywhere but home. Their break came fast, opening for The Who and Elton John at the Roundhouse in London on December 20th, 1970. They caught the attention of producers Ian Samwell and Jeff Dexter. Their sound, built on three-part harmonies, acoustic guitars, and lyrics about travel, restlessness, and escape, wasn't manufactured for commercial appeal. It was the authentic expression of three young men who'd spent their entire lives feeling like outsiders, singing about an America that existed mostly in their collective memory and dreams. America signed with Warner Brothers and released their self-titled debut album in January 1972. The response was modest. Radio programmers weren't quite sure what to do with them. The album performed decently in some markets, but it wasn't the breakthrough the record company had hoped for. The label needed something more. The suggestion came to record additional material at Morgan Studios. Among these late additions was a Dewey Bunnell composition he'd originally called Desert Song. It was inspired by fragments of memory, those long desert drives through the Southwest when his family was stationed stateside, the stark beauty of landscapes that felt both alien and quintessentially American.
The first thing I met was a fly with a buzz and...
The track was quickly retitled A Horse with No Name. Driven by a hypnotic clip-clopping beat and Jerry Beckley's distinctive 12-string guitar, it was mysterious and cryptic in a way that defied easy categorization. The lyrics were deliberately abstract. There were plants and birds and rocks and things. A line that would later become infamous for its simplicity. In early 1972, A Horse with No Name became a massive international phenomenon, soaring to number 1 on the US Billboard Hot 100 by March. Gold certification followed within weeks. The success was so swift and shocking that even the band members were stunned. They had thought the track was maybe a little too quirky, possibly too much of a novelty song to be taken seriously. But radio couldn't get enough of it, and here's where the story gets interesting. Countless Americans, hearing the track for the first time, were convinced it was a new release from Neil Young, The similarity in vocal quality and guitar style was striking enough that even seasoned music fans were fooled. The controversy exploded when the song famously displaced Neil Young's own Heart of Gold from the top spot on the charts. Dewey Bunnell never shied from acknowledging the influence. "I was inspired by Neil, who was and remains a great hero," he later stated openly. But the comparisons also sparked backlash. Some accused them of being derivative, of riding Neil Young's coattails to success. Regardless of the controversy, the success was undeniable. 3 unknown American teenagers living in England had the #1 song in the United States and a global identity practically overnight. But this meteoric rise created a fundamental pressure. They were defined overnight by an acoustic thematic fluke, a song they'd almost left off the album entirely. Having achieved a massive signature hit without the usual gradual industry development, they were thrust into a high-stakes arena where every subsequent release would be measured against this accidental masterpiece. The question became unavoidable: could they do it again? The answer, remarkably, was yes. America proved they were no one-hit wonder. Their debut album, now powered by the monster success of A Horse with No Name, yielded another top 10 hit, Jerry Beckley's I Need You, which peaked at number 9. The foundation was solid. Their second album, Homecoming, arrived in 1972 and delivered what would become the definitive road trip anthem of the decade, Ventura Highway. Peaking at number 8, the song captured something ineffable about the American West: the endless highways, the golden California light, the promise of freedom just over the next horizon. But success at this level required more than just good songs. It demanded polish, sophistication, and industry prestige. In 1974, America made a move that would define their golden era. They recruited Sir George Martin, the legendary producer responsible for nearly every Beatles album, to helm their next projects. The man known as the Fifth Beatle brought instant credibility. But more importantly, Martin understood how to take their raw acoustic purity and transform it into sophisticated, radio-ready soft rock without losing the emotional core. He added strings, layered harmonies, refined arrangements, and created soundscapes that felt both intimate and expansive. The George Martin era, spanning from 1974 to 1977 and 4 consecutive albums, Holiday, Hearts, Hideaway, and Harbor, was the commercial and artistic peak of America's career. The hits came fast and relentless. Tin Man, in 1974, peaked at number 4, showcasing Martin's gift for creating shimmering melancholic beauty. Dan Peake's defining anthem, Lonely People, hit number 5 in 1975, offering hope to anyone who'd ever felt isolated or misunderstood. The lyrics, "Don't give up until you drink from the silver cup," became a lifeline for countless listeners struggling with their own loneliness. Then came their second #1 hit, Sister Golden Hair, released in May 1975. If A Horse with No Name was their lightning bolt moment, Sister Golden Hair was their confirmation as soft rock royalty. The song epitomized everything the George Martin era represented: polished production, aching harmonies, and lyrics that balanced vulnerability with hope. It was the sound of mid-1970s America, optimistic, yearning, and beautifully crafted. The industry recognized their dominance. America won the Grammy Award for Best New Artist in 1973. By 1975, their greatest hits compilation, History, America's Greatest Hits, achieved multi-platinum sales, cementing their place in the soundtrack of a generation. These were the golden years, not just for the band, but for their audience. High school summers, first loves, long drives through the countryside that seemed to stretch forever. The music scored everything: graduation parties, late-night beach bonfires, moments of quiet reflection, staring at bedroom ceilings, wondering what the future held. But here's the hidden truth about peaks. They create exposure. The same George Martin sound that made them radio darlings also categorized them firmly within the soft rock genre. And by the late 1970s, musical tastes were shifting violently. Punk was exploding in England. New wave was challenging the established order. Arena rock was getting harder, louder, more aggressive. The gentle, harmonious beauty that had made America superstars was suddenly being dismissed by critics as toothless, corporate, easy listening. The formula for their success was becoming the boundary of their artistic scope, and internal pressures were building in ways the public couldn't see. Success, especially the rapid, high-pressure success America experienced, exacts a toll that's often invisible until it's too late. By the mid-1970s, the constant touring, recording schedules, and the trappings of rock stardom began wearing down the trio. Despite the gentle nature of their music, the soft harmonies and acoustic warmth, they were exposed to the same atmosphere of excess as their harder rocking contemporaries. The drugs, the alcohol, the groupies, the empty hotel rooms and cities that all blurred together. Dan Peek struggled profoundly with the lifestyle. Years later, in his memoir, An American Band, he detailed the crushing internal conflict that fame created. He described the experience as being on a runaway freight train with no way to get off. Picture this: Dan Peek had achieved everything the American dream promised, and he was miserable. All this stuff is supposed to make me feel good, he later reflected. It's not doing it. The emptiness was profound and terrifying. Peek had made an early promise, a spiritual vow, that if he ever achieved success, he would use it for religious purposes. Instead, he'd become what he called a practicing hedonist for 7 years, living a double life that tore him apart from the inside. Outwardly, he was living like Keith Richards. Inwardly, he was a devout Christian drowning in guilt and despair. The breaking point came in 1977. Peek rededicated his life to his faith with a dramatic, tearful prayer of repentance. He resolved to live a life that would glorify God, which meant leaving behind everything that defined his public existence. He quit America. The departure was amicable on the surface. No screaming matches, no lawsuits, no tabloid drama. Dan Peek simply walked away to pursue a solo career as a Christian pop artist, but the aftermath was devastating both personally and professionally. Shortly after his departure, his house burned down in a fire. The separation from his bandmates felt, as he described it, like going through a divorce. This was the emotional hinge of America's story. Unlike the explosive breakups that defined other rock bands, the lawsuits, the public feuds, the bitter recriminations, America's collapse was quiet. It was driven by a private spiritual reckoning that the public never fully understood. But the result was equally catastrophic. The loss of the third voice, the third songwriter, the third creative perspective permanently broke the unique three-part harmony that had been the hallmark of their sound. Jerry Beckley and Dewey Bunnell had no choice but to soldier on as a duo, but the departure of Dan Peek immediately revealed the depth of the void he'd left behind. Their first album after the split, the concert LP Live, released in October 1977, was a commercial disaster. Recorded shortly after Peek's exit, it barely registered on the charts, peaking at a dismal number 129. This broke their impressive streak of top 30 albums and signaled that something fundamental had changed. The magic was gone. They ended their long tenure with Warner Brothers and shifted to Capitol Records, hoping a fresh start might revive their fortunes. But the transition coincided with a severe identity crisis. The final George Martin-produced album, Silent Letter, in 1979, peaked at a disheartening number 110. The polished soft rock sound that had defined them was now out of step with the musical landscape of the early 1980s. Then came Alibi in 1980, a symbolic low point that revealed just how fractured the relationship between the band and their label had become. Internal friction over track selection and sequencing resulted in something almost unheard of in the music industry. The album was literally divided into two sides, our side and their side, reflecting the battle for creative control. Dewey Bunnell optimistically claimed Alibi would be another milestone in our career. The reality was brutal. The album peaked at number 142 on the Billboard 200. The bitterness extended beyond commercial failure. The remaining duo made a painful decision that revealed how unreconciled the split truly was. They deleted Dan Peek's most successful compositions, including the top 10 hits, Don't Cross the River and Lonely People, from their live repertoire. The songs that had once defined their harmony were now erased, as if they'd never existed. The public didn't notice the specific details of the collapse. They simply realized that America was no longer on the radio anymore. The hits had stopped. The cultural relevance had evaporated. The band that had once dominated FM airwaves was now relegated to oldie stations and nostalgia tours. There was a brief recovery in 1982 when producer Russ Ballard helped them adapt their sound to the emerging power pop styles of the early 80s. The track, You Can Do Magic, propelled them back into the top 10, a fleeting reminder that they still had the ability to craft a hit. And then, silence. By the 1990s, America had fully transitioned into survival mode, a touring nostalgia act, playing state fairs, casinos, and county festivals. Dewey Bunnell's weary, self-aware joke before encores captured their new reality perfectly. Before launching into A Horse with No Name, he'd quip to the audience, "Well, it's time to drag out the nag, I guess." The song that had launched them to stardom was now the only reason most people showed up. But something unexpected happened in the 21st century. The world began to rediscover America. The rise of the yacht rock cultural movement, which affectionately celebrated the sophisticated, smooth sounds of late 70s and early 80s soft rock, helped recontextualize their entire catalog. Songs like Ventura Highway and Sister Golden Hair were no longer dismissed as disposable easy listening. They were recognized as precursors to the polished studio craft of bands like Toto and Steely Dan, foundational works of a genre that demanded serious musical chops. But the most significant revival came through cinema and television. Modern filmmakers and music supervisors rediscovered the band's catalog, recognizing the unique ability of their songs to set a nostalgic, evocative tone. A Horse with No Name, that quirky track they'd almost left off their debut album, became a vital component of modern storytelling. It featured prominently in Breaking Bad, American Hustle, and The Nice Guys. Other songs found similar placements: Lonely People in Jesus Revolution, Ventura Highway in countless road trip montages and coming-of-age films. This cinematic rediscovery provides emotional closure to the story. The three displaced military kids who sang about an America they barely knew created music that transcended its era. The music refused to die, even when the brotherhood that created it collapsed into silence and estrangement. Even when the hits stopped and the tours became desperate exercises in nostalgia, the songs endured. America proved that the greatest harmonies can emerge from the deepest displacement. Three military kids turned homesickness into art, conquered the world's airwaves, then quietly fell apart when success revealed its emptiness. Dan Peek chose faith over fame. The duo that remained struggled to recapture the magic. But the songs, those timeless, aching melodies, outlived every conflict and found new generations to move. What's your memory of hearing America for the first time? Drop it in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more journeys through the music that defined the 1970s.